The views and opinions expressed by the participants on this show are not necessarily those of Steward Information Services Corporation, Stewart Title, or Steward Insurance. Before you make any investment, you should seek the advice of your investment advisor or attorney.
Whether you're a real estate broker, realtor, homeowner, buyer, or seller, everything matters when it comes to real estate. This is Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. Stewart Title's Bill Napick and guests open the door to what really matters in owning, buying, and selling real estate. And now, Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. Here to inform, entertain, and inspire, Bill Napick.
Welcome to Real Estate Matters. My name is John Bramblett with Stewart Insurance. I'm sitting in for Bill Napick, and welcome to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. I hope everybody had a joyous and lovely Thanksgiving. I know the folks at the associates at Stewart Insurance are very thankful for the opportunity to bring Real Estate Matters to you all each and every week. It's quite an honor for us to be part of the Stewart family and to bring this great educational real estate program to you each week. I'm equally thankful for our all-star lineup today that we have on Real Estate Matters. We're kicking off with Nancy Dalton, who is a loan officer with Spirit of Texas Bank. And then we have a trio from Stewart Insurance. Tom Carpentier, Sigmund Kramer, and Rahim Bahami will be joining us as well. So we've got a fully action-packed show today. So without further ado, we're going to begin with Nancy Dalton. Nancy is a loan officer at Spirit of Texas Bank and quite famously known as Her Royal Highness. So welcome, Nancy, to Real Estate Matters.
Thanks, John, and thanks for having me on the program today.
We really do appreciate it. So if we kind of take a look at 2020 and 2021, to say the least, they've been pretty crazy years, especially in the housing market. As we move into 2022 and you look into your crystal ball, what do you see?
I see some of the same and some of a little different. 2021, we've seen record number of people wanting to buy homes, but not record number of homes being on the market. I'm seeing builders already pedaling as fast as they can to put more product down on the ground, so I think that's going to open up the bandwidth. Maybe it'll bring the craziness of, am I going to get my contract accepted? Anyway, more property kind of brings a little bit of level of normalcy to the market. I think we'll see more homes available, interest rates staying decently the same, and the same amount of people motivated to buy homes. So from your perspective as a loan officer, when do you think we'll start to see some of these new homes and the new properties starting to be available? Will that be the back end of this year, or do you think it'll be the first quarter of 2022? I think first quarter 2022. I'm already, like I said, it takes builders probably 6-7 months, just depends on what stage they're in to get those product available. But yes, summer buying season, as it typically will be, should be pretty robust with new homes available.
And you anticipate that there shouldn't be any significant change in interest rates?
That's a crystal ball. It's at the dry cleaner, yes. We hear everything. It's a mixed bag from, oh my gosh, we've got inflation, or they're going to postpone things through to end of 2022. Your guess is almost as good as mine, but I still think that, say, I could ask everyone on this program if you've ever bought a house before, or all the people that are in this room, what was your mortgage rate that you paid in 20 years ago, 15 years ago, et cetera. People still, it's not that much of a detriment if you're looking to buy a home and invest in real estate with your family. We're still closing loans at decent rates and will be.
So we've seen homes come on the market and move off the market at such a rapid pace. What are some of the challenges that pace has presented to your clients as well as Spirit of Texas Bank?
I think every loan officer could probably say the thing that tops their list is appraisals. It's just that supply and demand. There's record number of homes, and not to mention just people purchasing homes, but low interest rates spurs the borrower to refi or pull cash out of their home or start a construction project. So it's the same. You're taking a finite number of appraisers and an infinite number of appraisal requests. So it's time, and I would say just kind of anticipate you're not going to be able to close a house if you need an appraisal within, say, 3 weeks' time. You may want to set your expectations a little bit longer.
Does it affect whether you'll consider a mortgage for somebody if they do or do not have an appraisal?
That's not really necessarily dictated by me. So if you're doing, say, an FHA loan, you're always going to have an appraisal on those type of products. I am seeing some of the other products, such as a Fannie Mae loan, which is a conventional loan. It's a risk assessment. So if your borrower's putting 20% or more down, good credit scores, just the type of the loan requested, COVID has brought us a lot of challenges, but we've had some pickups as loan officers, is that they understand that there's a number of record requests out there. They've lessened some of the guidelines. So I guess what I'm driving at is we are seeing Fannie Mae underwriters only asking for maybe a drive-by appraisal or maybe an appraisal that's a market analysis, or sometimes we don't need an appraisal at all. So if we don't need one of those, that's a huge pickup in time and process for the borrower.
We're visiting with Nancy Dalton with Spirit of Texas Bank on Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. So I'm thinking about buying a home. So when should I engage with you?
Yesterday.
Okay.
Before you even thought about it. A good realtor, if you're working with one, usually that's how it comes to me. People go A plus B is C. So they're thinking about, I want to look at a house. I probably need a realtor. That realtor is going to need to know what that borrower's purchasing power is in your price range. And they'll direct you to, well, have you been pre-qualified? Have you talked to a loan officer? Have you had your credit pulled? So on and so forth. It's, like I said, it's usually the first step of the process. And letter in hand, once I chat with the borrower, find out what their needs are, then that gives the realtor process of elimination. It's certainly a minimum and a maximum range to look for homes.
So first recommendation is, once I have the idea that I think I might want to buy a home, is to have a conversation with you.
Definitely. And it's, I always tell people, it's check with a mortgage professional. Yes. I mean, you can buy a car online, you can have one delivered to your home now, those type of things. But if you're looking to actually make the largest purchase of your life, chatting with a mortgage professional is definitely the first place to go. Everyone has different goals coming from different backgrounds, and it helps as a loan officer to kind of flush out any of those type of things.
What other guidance points would you provide somebody going through this process to make sure that that lending experience is as good as possible?
Be honest, and just kind of, as I said, there's people coming from all different walks of life. I mean, so I could tell you that you have borrowers that are just emerging from college. Hey, it's my first job. People buy homes when they feel comfortable to do so. Something's going on in their life. They've gotten that big promotion at work, or they are now working for their first time, or they got a bonus at work, or there's just certain frameworks that a loan officer, we need to know things like, how long have you gotten that bonus? Are you going to get that bonus in the future? How long are you working overtime? It's got to fit in a box. Like I said, they feel comfortable to make that jump. But if I can tell you that bonus overtime, or whatever the factor is, might need to have 2 years receipt of that, or there's certain sources of income. There's people from all walks of life. Your self-employed borrower is a different analysis, different trends. We look for past features that predict the future. No one can really predict the future, but as an underwriter and a loan officer, we really need to get a stability factor going, and that is a good place to start. Like I said, I mean, as a loan officer, we can tell a borrower, if not now, when can you be ready to buy a home?
So if I come on board and for whatever reason I'm not quite ready, you can lay out a game plan for me so that I understand if I do these things in a certain amount of time, I can come back and have that conversation again.
Yes. And the usual predictor, I would call it the rule of two. 2 years of employment, 2 years of self-employment, 2 years of overtime, 2 years of if you're receiving rental income. That pretty much gives the stability factor and the groundwork that, again, an underwriter could project that income in the future. So if that kind of answers your question, I think, right? If not now, then when?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You also mentioned self-employed. So do you have to look at an individual that's self-employed differently than somebody that works for a major corporation, for example?
Yes, I always call it the W-2 borrower, pay stub, W-2. My income's always the same and expected to be the same. Yes, self-employed borrowers, we look at trends. So again, that 2 year, you need to be self-employed for 2 years typically for a conventional, an FHA, a VA, something that's going to be sold onto the secondary market. That would give us the basis. Most self-employed businesses, statistically, that's your startup year. You're going to spend your capital, and I don't want to say they typically lose business, but most of your income is set just setting up the business. Year number 2, we're hoping that you're setting your stride, and that's going to predict that 30-year future, which is a long time to evaluate that borrower. So, yes, it does. And COVID has kind of brought in a couple other things. They're asking for profit and loss statements. We're looking at that trend and how if it has, the pandemic affected your income, et cetera.
We're visiting with Nancy Dalton with Spirit of Texas Bank on Real Estate Matters. So we talked about coming to you at the beginning of this process. What should I do to prepare before I come to see you to make sure that process, again, is as profitable as possible? Yes,
and as seamless and maybe as painless. Usually it's just having all of your documentation in order. If you are self-employed, tax returns, W-2, if you're a W-2 borrower, we'll need your most recent 1-month paycheck stub, asset statements, etc. If you are selling another home, that makes a difference. If you are your first-time home buyer, you might be getting a gift from mom and dad, or you might be borrowing from your 401k. All those things helps a loan officer tremendously decide what's our game plan. If you're having a home being built and it's 6-7 months out and you don't have the monies in your bank account now, what are you going to do to get there? And a lot of times they'll tell you, I'm planning on doing this, that, the other. We're in that time of year now that if you are building a home and it's move-in ready in summer, I'm getting a tax refund. Can I use that as my down payment, that type of thing?
We appreciate that and the great guidance and information that you've provided our listeners today. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, Nancy, and continue this conversation, what's the best way for them to do so?
More than likely, the one that's always with me is cell phone is 281-989-8861.
Give that to me one more time.
281-989-8861.
And you're at the Spirit of Texas location in the Galleria.
Yes, it's called Galleria. It's near Memorial Park, I-10 and Silver area. But yes, it's North Post Oak Road location.
Fantastic. So we've been visiting with Nancy Dalton, a loan officer at Spirit of Texas Bank. Thank you, Nancy. We appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you.
If you're a real estate professional, then listen closely. Cyber criminals are targeting our industry. They are impersonating real estate professionals, homebuyers, sellers, and title agents. Their goal is to gain access to your inboxes, computers, and clients so they can steal information and funds. Does your business insurance offset these risks? Not sure? Contact Steward Insurance to determine if your business is properly insured. Visit stewardinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827. Visit stewardinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
We're now joined by the president of Steward Insurance, Tom Carpentier. Tom, welcome to Real Estate Matters. Always great to have you as a guest.
John, it's always great to be here.
So, Nancy was kind of giving us a view of what she sees from a lender perspective. Let me kind of ask you the same question from an insurance perspective. So let's take the 10,000-foot view. So what are some of the trends that you're seeing out there, in the marketplace that are affecting our clients or could affect our clients, both on the the personal lines, the families and individuals, as well as the real estate business owners?
Yeah, so we support individual families or people for their individual insurance, which would include home insurance, auto insurance, things along those lines. Then on the business side, we will also, we insure businesses for general liability and professional liability, and they may have commercial properties they need to insure, things along those lines. So I would just start on both sides of that equation. You can look at property insurance, right? And we're seeing a substantial increase on property insurance, and we're seeing a lot of inflation, and a lot of talk of inflation. And one of the things driving increases in property insurance, whether that's commercial property or residential or home insurance, is the cost to repair and build homes, right? The materials, the labor, all of that. So what does that mean for insurance? Well, the insurance for property insurance is rated based on not just the value of the home, but what it would take to rebuild or repair a home in the event it was damaged. And so we're seeing an uptick in premiums associated with that, because the claims experience for the insurance companies is getting greater in terms of the dollars paid out, primarily because of the cost to rebuild or repair.
So on that, if we look at that property insurance and specifically on the home, but I know that it can go both ways, is if I have a home policy, does that automatically mean that I'm going to get my home replaced or my property replaced at full value? Or does it depend upon what the coverage is on the property to determine whether there's a depreciation element in it as well?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And I always like to tell people that, we really look to properly insure people. And that means different things for different people. So, related to your question, there is a difference. Words matter when it comes to insurance. Insurance is a contract, right? And it's stipulating what it will do for you in the event of A, B, or C. So in terms of property insurance, you'll often hear replacement cost or actual cash value. Replacement cost is it will rebuild or repair or replace at current value. Versus actual cash value looks at the diminished value of the property. So you're looking at what the original cost would have been. So you have a difference there between actual cash value and replacement cost.
So on the business side, the real estate firms that Stewart Insurance helps properly insure, what are some of the things that you're seeing in that arena that are affecting your clients?
So we predominantly work with real estate professionals in insuring their businesses. So that would be real estate brokers and their respective agents. We also insure real estate settlement companies, as well as attorneys that have a high concentration in real estate. And one of the lead-in products, if you will, as part of a insurance plan we build for them, is something called professional liability. So a big part of our audience would be real estate brokers. The good thing is the real estate market's been really hot, and there's a lot of real estate professionals that have done really well financially. The downside of all that is one of the biggest drivers for insurance costs, for example, real estate brokers or other real estate professionals, is their insurance is rated on income. So as their income goes up, their potential professional liability could increase because you're doing more transactions, you're working with more people, so you could be more susceptible to error as a result of that. So as incomes go up, the insurance providers will increase rates along a schedule associated with the increase in revenue. So we have a lot of real estate professionals that are seeing rate or premium increases because they're seeing an increase in revenue. Or another component is staff count. If you have a higher staff count, you are technically a higher risk to these insurance companies that will provide forms of business insurance, specifically professional liability, talking more specifically to real estate brokers and settlement companies and attorneys that focus on real estate.
So you had mentioned this idea of plans and building plans for your clients. I know that our audience has heard the term policy, but what's the difference between building a plan and having a policy?
So we take the mindset in our approach is to look at an individual, a household, or a business, and evaluate exposure. Figure out what potential exposure they may have based on their lifestyle, based on the type of business they conduct. So there are different exposures, and unfortunately there isn't one silver bullet in terms of one policy that will cover all those exposures. So we look at those exposures and we develop a plan made up of policies that will help the client offset the risk of those exposures to the insurance. So for us, a plan is a makeup of insurance policies, also best practices and recommendations you can do to eliminate the chance of a claim or an exposure to begin with, right? Because even if you have great insurance, if you have some form of event or succumb to some kind of exposure, you're going to somewhat have to stop in your tracks, whether you're an individual or a business, and have to work through that claim process with an insurance company. Obviously, the better the company, the more seamless that is. But having said that, it's still a break in your routine, right?
We're visiting with Tom Carpentier, the president of Steward Insurance, on Real Estate Matters. You also mentioned earlier this idea of properly insured, and for our regular listeners, they hear that term quite often during our insurance segment. From your perspective as a leader of Steward Insurance, what does it mean to be properly insured?
It means evaluating your exposures. If you're a homeowner or you're a business owner or you have a vehicle, whatever you're looking to insure in terms of the exposures you may have, it's looking at how much of a particular exposure someone wants to offset to an insurance company, right? And that may be different for other people. Some people may be very financially solvent, and they are only looking to insure against major catastrophic events or situations, right? Total loss of something along those lines, whereas they're willing to take on more exposure because they have higher assets, right? So it's kind of looking at somebody's situation that does break down to economics and their financial status to see how much someone wants to offset to an insurance company. So an insurance plan means building it and molding it for who they are, what they do, what their situation is, and how much, if something went wrong, how much they could absorb themselves versus having an offset through an insurance company. So hopefully that makes sense, but it's building a plan that makes sense for the individual or the business based on their, let's just call it, risk tolerance.
So is this idea of building a plan and this idea of properly insured, is this commonplace with insurance brokers and in the insurance world, or is this something that's unique to Steward Insurance?
I think it's not necessarily 100% unique to us, but I would say that it's probably not always the norm, right? It's mostly about taking in. A lot of times I see in the industry that groups will take an order. Hey, I need this policy to meet this requirement. I need an auto policy to meet my lender's requirement. I need this business insurance to meet my property manager's requirement under a lease agreement, right? So I just need this, right? So there's a quick sale of a policy, right? Well, is that policy really worth the weight of the paper that it's written on, right? So it is. That's a lot of times what happens. And granted, I'm an insurance guy sitting here saying this, but a lot of the reason the insurance industry gets a bad rap is because this analysis is not going on, and so people will buy things that on the surface are meeting a base requirement, but is it really meeting their needs in terms of offsetting that exposure? And then they get a claim or something occurs and there's a claim denial. Well, like I said earlier, words matter when it comes to insurance. There's a lot of different things in an insurance policy. It's a written contract in terms of conditions, exclusions, things along those lines that may or may not really be covering the specific risk that you have. So it's important to really, we always say in our office, work with the client and burn some calories to really figure out what the true needs are and what the exposure points are, so we can advise and counsel on what might be of best interest to them, and then they can make that decision, right?
So you've mentioned wanting to spend time with your clients and educate them and finding what their risk tolerances are, and then this idea of building a plan versus just selling a policy. So it sounds like that there's probably some unique characteristics that you'd like to have for the associates to be part of Steward Insurance. So what are the things that you look for when you bring a new member of the team on?
Yeah, we really want people to have a desire to solve problems, and you hear that a lot, and that's true, right? You know, when it comes to sales or someone that's advising, you want somebody that has the approach to solve problems. Kind of along those lines, we want people to be curious, right? Somebody may come in just, hey, I need this, and I just need it, right now. Well, you got to have the wherewithal to say, well, we need to dig in a little deeper because I don't want to necessarily give you something that isn't truly applicable to what exposure or what problem you really need to solve for. So I think the most rewarding part of our job is identifying problems that people walked in not knowing about. And so they need to be curious, and they really need to have a strong desire to understand the clients, to help them determine really unknown problems so you can build a plan to help them solve for those things.
We're visiting with Tom Carpentier, president of Steward Insurance, on Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. So I like what I'm hearing, and I like the approach that you're taking, and I have an interest in insurance. Do I need to be a licensed professional to be part of the team?
You don't. We hire people with no experience. We hire people with experience. At the end of the day, it's really about the makeup of the person. Our approach is a good fit for those looking to get into this industry or make a change within the industry. So no, we will work with inexperienced people, experienced people. We kind of show the way we do things. We are open to suggestions as people come in because we're an evolving organization, just like everybody else is personally evolving, right? We just want to, at the end of the day, do what's in the best interest of our clients and our prospective clients. And again, it just takes people that want to go, deeper. They don't want to just be at a surface level. We want people that want to aspire to be subject matter experts that are going to really be advisors. And we call our folks advisors, not agents, not brokers or anything like that. We call them advisors because we really take that mindset that we are, coaches and counselors and advisors to our clients.
So if we've got some listeners that are getting jazzed about this and they feel like that this is something that they'd like to do, are there opportunities right now at Steward Insurance for folks to join the team?
Absolutely. We've got advisor roles both on the personal insurance side, so that's working with individuals for their insurance needs, and then we also have roles for commercial insurance advisors, so those are the folks that would be working in advising businesses, and again, our focus is really within real estate, so companies that operate within real estate, and then we have service roles and support roles, so we have quite a few openings, so we're growing and we're looking to increase our capacity with quality individuals that really want to learn the business and become subject matter experts.
So if one of our listeners decides that they'd like to be part of the team or they'd like to be properly insured, how can they best go about getting hold of you?
They can all do it the same way. They can email us at stewardinsurance@steward.com, or no matter where you are, because we're hiring anybody in the United States, anybody in any location within the United States. You can call 866-798-2827.
We've been visiting with Tom Carpentier, president of Steward Insurance. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate you being with us.
John, thank you.
We're now fortunately to be joined with Rahim Bahami. Rahim is an insurance advisor at Steward Insurance, and he works with individuals and families in building their insurance plans. Rahim, welcome to Real Estate Matters.
Thank you, John. Thanks for having me.
We're so glad to have you today. So when we say you work with individuals and families, it's just that kind of talk about the folks that you work with and kind of what your approach is in dealing with them.
Yeah, so I work with everyone that owns a home, an auto, anything that's personal they want to insure. I work with them, try to get them the best plan that's out there for them, not focusing too much on the price, try to get them the best plan and get them properly insured. So I do auto, home, umbrella, life insurance.
Let's talk a little bit about those different plans and some of the things that people can start with. So let's begin with the home policy,
Sure.
The home plan. So I'm looking to get a new home plan, or I've got one, but I'm not sure I have the right coverage. What are the things that you're going to work with me on to make sure that I understand, to make sure that when I'm finished with that plan that I am properly insured?
Yeah, so the number one thing is, getting you covered the right way, the dollar amount of the home to rebuild. A lot of people go off of the price they purchase. The insurance carriers don't really look at that. They want to go off of what it's going to cost to rebuild it. We want to make sure you're properly insured and not overinsured or underinsured. We want to make sure that you have all the water coverages, depending on how big your home is, where it's at, and make sure that you are aware that, there is flood in Houston. So we want to make sure we put that out there, letting you know that to offer you a flood policy as well.
So you talked about water damages. So if I have a home policy and a hurricane comes through and I get flooded, you're telling me that my home policy is not going to cover that flood damage?
If we had a hurricane that came through like Harvey that caused a lot of flooding in Houston and Harris County and surrounding area, no, it would not be covered by your homeowners. That would be a separate policy. It would be a flood policy.
So on a home policy, you had mentioned that there are some water damage potentially that's covered. What kind of water damage would a home policy cover? So
water backup, anything that backs up from your sewage or sink. The freeze we had early this year in February, you had a bursted pipe that caused damage. That would be covered. So you want to make sure that you have those coverages, because I ran into a lot of clients this year. They said, do they have coverage because the pipe bursted and damaged their wood floors, cabinets. So that's a very important thing to have.
All right. So the other you mentioned that I would sure would be awfully prevalent for your clients would be auto policies and auto plans. What are some of the things that I need to look for or consider when I'm getting an auto plan? Just
making sure you have the right coverage. Don't go with the cheapest plan or the minimum coverage, state minimum coverage. You want to make sure that you are properly covered. If you're driving a $70,000 Tesla, you want to make sure if you had a total loss, the insurance is gonna cover that. The best way to do that is talk to your agent, let them know much information as possible, and getting to just talk to your agent. So we've talked about home plans and flood plans and auto. What are some of the other things that you work with the families and individuals that you represent as their insurance advisor? Umbrella policies. You want to make sure that, if you have a swimming pool or a trampoline, anything like that, where it increases your exposure to liability, you want to make sure that you are fully covered. Make sure you have a good limit on your home policy for the personal liability, and then add an umbrella policy, especially if you have a swimming. So umbrella policy provides just kind of some additional coverage for me beyond what I might see in a home plan? Correct. So what about if I have a motorcycle, or I have a motor home, or a second home is a vacation home? Can you help me with the insurance on those items as well? Yeah, definitely. We also focus on rental properties, boats, RVs, any kind of toys, ATVs. We could do all of that. So you mentioned a second ago when you're working with your clients and finding out what their risks are and what their risk tolerances are. What are the things that you're hearing right now that are most concerning to your clients? Mainly flood insurance. Flood is a big concern because after Harvey, everyone's just been very scared. We have any kind of storm brewing in the Gulf, everyone starts calling their insurance agent saying, am I covered? What's going on with my coverage? So you want to make sure that you're ahead of that, because there is a waiting period for flood. There's a 30-day waiting period until your policy is in effect. So you want to make sure you get ahead of that and make sure before the hurricane season comes up, you are properly insured. So I'm sitting in my living room and I'm watching the evening news, and they come on and say Tropical Storm Sigmund is in the Gulf of Mexico. Can I call you and get coverage right then, or am I going to have to wait? You could definitely call me, and I could get you the best plan, but you will have to wait 30 days before your policy goes into effect. Now, do I still have to wait if I'm in the middle of buying a home? No. So for home closings, it goes into effect right away as your effective date, your closing date. So the other thing that I've heard that is always a bit disconcerting is somebody will say, I'm not in a flood zone. So would you please tell people that we all are in a flood zone? Yes. If you live in Houston, Harris County, anywhere near the Houston, you are in a flood zone. During Harvey, homes that were not in a flood zone, never been flooded, got flooded. And the homes that were always flooded, some of them didn't get flooded. So we just don't know who's going to get flooded, who's not. So it's always best to have a flood policy in place.
Yeah, and our friends at the National Flood Insurance Program always say we're all in flood zones. We're just, some of us are less likely to flood. So you've mentioned this idea a couple of times about being properly insured. And when we were visiting with Tom Carpentier earlier, Tom mentioned the same thing. So from your perspective, how do you define being properly insured, and what do you do to go about to making sure that your clients are properly insured?
To me, it's just having a peace of mind. If I'm going to sleep at night, I know that anything happens, I am covered. And that's what I, try to talk to my clients about. Just talk to them much as I can to get more information out of them so I could present the best plan for them. I'm not too pushy or anything like that. I want to make sure they're comfortable with me and I'm comfortable insuring them. I ran into a lot of clients where they are just focused on price and they just want a certain amount of coverage, and I have to let them know that I cannot do that because I want to make sure I'm doing the right thing.
How difficult is it for you when you come across a prospective client and they were with somebody that maybe wasn't as concerned about them being properly insured, and you start to explain to them all the things that they don't have that they thought they had? How difficult is that, and how challenging of a conversation can that be?
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because, again, like Tom mentioned, the insurance agents just have a bad rep. So kind of letting them know what's going on with their policy, it does get difficult because they said, they'll let me know, hey, my other insurance agent doesn't tell me that. Well, they're focused on price and just getting you as a client, and that's it. I'm here to build the relationship. I want to make sure that properly insured, and I keep you as my client for long as I can because I want to make sure that I'm here.
So when you're working with a prospective client, you're wanting them to invest a little time with you as well.
Yes.
To make sure that you understand what their needs are so that you can come back with that proper plan. Is it a challenge at times to get people to invest that time up front, that kind of discovery period?
It is. Everyone's on the go, and that's the last person they want to talk to is an insurance agent. So, yeah, it is. But you are just upfront and, honest with them in the beginning. They'll have some time. And I always ask them, what is the best time to call you so I could talk to you? I'll need maybe 20 to 30 minutes of your time, no more than that, And then we could always communicate through email or text. I don't mind doing those either. So you could get a lot of information like that as well.
I'm intrigued by what we've learned today, and I'm thinking about, I'm either buying a plan for the first time or maybe I need to change advisors. What should I look for in an insurance partner? What should I look for in an insurance advisor to make sure that I obtain this nirvana of being properly insured?
Definitely somebody that's not pushing, and somebody that's going to educate you on the products that they're offering and what the plan they're coming up with for you, and somebody that listens well. You don't want somebody that's always talking, because insurance agents, you should be listening more than talking. Yeah, and not just price driven. You want to make sure that they're just not doing what you're just telling them. They're actually presenting something that's valuable and that's actually going to work in your favor if you do have a loss.
If somebody had an interest in working with you and they said, all right, Raheem, what is it special about you and what's special about Steward Insurance? What would you tell them?
So about me, I mean, I want to build a relationship. I don't want my clients to feel that, they're just another client. That's why I don't mind giving out my cell phone. I don't mind texting. I'm open to all of those. Even after hours, I'm willing to talk to them. Vacations. Just want to make sure they're comfortable. If they have a question, they feel comfortable enough to just pick up their phone and text me. And that's what we offer with Steward Insurance. We work with multiple carriers. So we have the ability to kind of find the best plan for them and get them the best plan with the best premium. We're
visiting with Raheem Bahamni, an insurance advisor for our families and individuals at Steward Insurance. So if I'm a listener and I want to get a hold of you and I want to talk to you about a plan or multiple plans, what's the best way for me to reach out to you?
Yeah, definitely. So my office line is 832-463-3585. And you could always text me on my cell phone at 713-933-4374. Text or call, either way.
Fantastic. Well, we've been visiting with Rahim Bahami with Steward Insurance. Rahim, thanks for being our guest.
Thank you for having me.
In today's litigious society, it is imperative to have the proper insurance to offset the many risks facing your business, especially if you're a real estate broker. Your errors and omissions and cyber liability insurance can help limit the threat of these risks if you know what to look for. Not sure if your insurance addresses the risks facing your business? Contact Steward Insurance to be confident your brokerage can withstand these risks. Steward Insurance, 866-798-2827, stewardinsurance.com. That's stewardinsurance.com or call 866-798-2827.
We're back at Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title. My name's John Bramblett. I'm your host today, pinch hitting for Bill Napick. Our cleanup hitter today is an insurance advisor also at Stewart Insurance. His name is Sigmund Kramer, and Sigmund works with our business real estate clients. Sigmund, welcome to Real Estate Matters.
Thank you, and I'd like to say you have hit it out of the park.
Well, thank you so much. We'll continue with the baseball analogies throughout the next segment.
Okay, you're going to have to do most of them because I'm terrible.
Okay, fair enough. So we're going to lead off with the first question. So what types of clients, as a business insurance advisor for Stewart Insurance, what types of clients do you work with?
Well, mainly when they're pretty much all in real estate, and they're going to be either title agents or real estate brokers. For the most part, some property managers as well thrown in there for just giggles, I suppose. But mainly it's going to be title agents and real estate brokers.
So what is a title agent? I'm sure our listeners probably are pretty familiar with what a real estate broker is, but what's a title agent, and what is their function in the real estate world?
Well, the chain of title is very important, deeds and looking to make sure that the property that is being sold is actually has a clear title is very important, because if there are any encumbrances such as a lien or any number of judgments that could be levied against the business, or I should say the property owner, then they try to sell, and then the new buyer's taking over, they may be taking on some liabilities that they're not aware of, and maybe even the property is not even really supposed to be sold. So it's very important to have that proper chain of title, have a clean chain of title. And so the type of business that takes care of that is a title agency. And they do the research to make sure that there's not any sort of a lien, or if there is, they try to get it corrected before that transaction takes place.
So are some of the title agents that you work with, are they all just real estate professionals, or some of them have other distinctions like attorneys or lawyers?
You know, that's a good point. I probably should have brought that up earlier, because a lot of title agents are attorneys. You know, they may have two hats they're wearing, and they may have their own entity, or they may just make it part of their law practice. And so depending on what state you're in, it may be mandated that the title work be performed, or at least some of it be performed by an attorney. So yes, attorneys for sure, could be title agents, or at least have someone in their office.
So when we were visiting with Rahim, and he was sharing with us some of the concerns that the families that he works with, that they have, and some of the risks that they're concerned about on these real estate professionals that you're working with, and these businesses that focus on real estate. What are the concerns that you're seeing in the marketplace that you're trying to help them out with?
Always there's a concern about making sure that regulatory requirements are met. So if you have to have a license to do business, and you have to have certain insurance in order to have that license, then of course that's something that they take into consideration as a concern. But more of what I hear from title agents is, they want to make sure that if there was a mistake, if there was an error or an omission made in the processing of that title search, or getting surveys or whatever work they're being done, drawing up documents, if there was an error or an omission that could then lead to a third party suffering a loss, who then comes back with a demand for damages against them, they want to make sure they've got coverage so that they're not having that exposure on themselves, so they don't have to pay out of pocket for their defense. And that's what the professional liability, otherwise known as errors or omissions, or errors and omissions, or E&O, that's what that policy is really meant to do, So one of the main concerns that I hear is, hey, do I have proper coverage for that, for all the different services that I'm providing? And then another big one right now is cyber liability, because you hear about it all the time. Ransomware attacks, email hacks, things of that nature that can really affect a business owner's ability to even be open for business, to transact business, because it can shut them down, disrupt everything. They can't access their data. Maybe they've got any number of privacy or data breach matters that can adversely impact their ability to do business. Maybe they've got people now who have been impacted down the chain, right? And so they come back and say, hey, it's caused a problem for me. And again, they maybe sue them or whatever. There's a lot of liability involved, because remember, with regards to title and doing these transactions for real estate, there's sensitive data, non-public information. And if that's shared, I should say, if it's taken, right, typically not shared, but if someone hacks in and gains access to it, that can create all sorts of problems. Maybe causing false identities to be used to open up fraudulent accounts, or sold on the black market, the dark web they call it. I mean, any number of things can happen nowadays.
I read about one the other day that was really scary on ransomware, is if you're hesitating to pay the ransom, that the new threat is, we're going to release your information that we're holding onto the web, and that they'll contact the people that they're holding your information, and they'll say, hey, Sigmund, we've got John's data. And if you don't convince John to pay that ransom, we're going to release all your personal data out on the web.
Wow, that's a very interesting kind of leveraging tool, because now you're using that as, like we were saying, it kind of further down the line. The people down the line get affected, and now pulling them into the situation, saying, hey, if this guy doesn't give me what I want, we're going to release your information, and to try to get them to pressure the title agent in this case to go ahead and pony up. I mean, that can be an effective tool, unfortunately.
So you mentioned the professional liability, the errors and omissions coverage. You talked a little bit about cyber coverage. What are some of the other plans that you build for your clients to make sure that they're properly insured?
Well, typically there are three main focuses: the professional liability, the errors and omissions coverage, the cyber liability, and then the third part being the fiduciary responsibility to the clients for the funds that they're holding. That would be the fidelity coverage. So those are the three main ones that kind of make that comprehensive package that we like to put in place for our clients, depending on their needs. I mean, there's no cookie cutter kind of a situation. We're going to speak with the individual business owners and really find out what it is specifically that they have concerns over and that they want to see managed by an insurance plan. But those are the three main ones. Then, of course, there's business owners policies or general liability, because you may be leasing or owning property, and you have responsibility and liability there. And beyond that, I mean, of course, we could do commercial auto. We talked about how you may have requirements that need to be satisfied. So maybe a property manager is going to require that you have general liability insurance, auto insurance, and these sorts of things. So workers' compensation is another one. Depending on how, I know in Texas you don't have to have it, but it doesn't mean you might not want it. And of course, we insure people across the country. So there are places where that is a requirement.
We're visiting with Sigmund Kramer, insurance advisor at Steward Insurance. So you've talked a couple of times about properly insured, and we've discussed that with Tom, and we've discussed that with Raheem. But from your perspective, especially dealing with our business clients, what are the things that you try to do and convey to our clients to make sure that they're properly insured?
Okay, so other than having the conversation and asking them kind of what their concerns are, the main thing is that you read your policy or get a policy specimen to look over and really review it, because if you don't, you don't know what coverage you have or don't have. And if you just trust at face value that you're going to have coverage because some marketing material said, the the buzzwords you're used to hearing, it doesn't necessarily mean that you actually are covered properly. So one thing that I do is ask if it's someone that I haven't done business with before, and maybe they have insurance placed elsewhere, have you read the policy? You'd be amazed, even with the attorneys. You'd be amazed at how many have not ever read their policy. So I'll obviously offer to read it, and review it and look for red flags, anything that might be a problem from a coverage perspective. But yeah, that's one thing for me that I was kind of surprised about, was how few people actually take the time and really delve into. And I understand, because that's not what they do for a living. Even the attorneys will tell me, hey, you know better than I do what I need to look for here. So yes, leave it to a professional, like we have the advisors at Steward Insurance, who'll be happy to take the time to review the wording and to educate. That's really important.
So you mentioned professional. So I'm a title and attorney agent. I'm a real estate broker. I own a property management firm. And these are subjects and topics that I might not have heard before in dealing with an insurance advisor. So what should I look for in an insurance broker or an individual advisor in order to make sure that I'm going with somebody that's going to take care of me and look after my needs and my assets?
Yeah, it's important, because unfortunately, there are a lot of people out there who don't really know what you do for a living. As a title agent or an attorney or a real estate broker, wouldn't it be nice to have somebody who actually can speak the language with you and kind of knows what you do for a living, so they have a better idea of what type of risks you're facing, what type of insurance or other types of risk management may be out there to mitigate the risk of a loss. And so it's important to have somebody who's got that breadth and depth of knowledge of your business, but also to know what insurance and other solutions are available at any given time, because it changes all the time. So making sure that there's that knowledge, and also that they have the willingness and the desire to take the time to learn more about your business, and also to educate when needed, because let's face it, like I said, it's constantly changing. The threats are changing. What's available to meet those threats changes. So having a really in-depth conversation, and I know it's tough. You're business owners. You've got a lot on your plate, trying to take care of your clients, so you don't necessarily have the desire or the time to devote to that kind of conversation. But it's important, because ultimately it's protecting you, your business, and your clients.
We've been visiting with Sigmund Kramer, insurance advisor at Steward Insurance. So now I'm excited. I want to be properly insured. I want to work with you, Sigmund. So how do I do that? How do I get a hold of you?
Well, that's easy. So you just call anyone at the Stewart Insurance team. Actually, can be a great resource, not just me. So 866-798-2827. Again, 866-798-2827. Then you can also reach us email. It's super simple. It's stewartinsurance@stewart.com.
Well, thank you, Sigmund. We appreciate you being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
And thank you all for listening to Real Estate Matters with Stewart Title, brought to you by Stewart Insurance. We really do appreciate your time, and we appreciate you joining us each week on Real Estate Matters. To learn more about Stewart, we invite you to visit stewart.com. That's www.stewart.com. To learn more about Stewart Insurance, like Sigmund just visited or mentioned, you can go to the Stewart Insurance website at stewartinsurance.com, or you can call 866-798-2827. That's 866-798-2827. And if you'd like to listen to this show again or any of our past over 400 shows, visit stewart.com/radio. That's stewart.com/radio. Again, my name is John Bramblett with Stewart Insurance, and thank you for listening to Real Estate Matters.